Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today and welcome to my channel this January 2021. I'm trying to get motivated and back into a routine after taking a break in December. And what better way to get motivated than to play with some new products? I actually got this set of Ohuhu markers last year. I've bought a few colors of the Copic brand because they seem to be the only brand that has the lighter shades. But not anymore. Ohuhu just released a set of 48 pastel colors. Oops, except for this one. That one doesn't go in there. But look how pretty they are. Lots of shades of pinks, blues, greens, and neutrals. A perfect addition to any existing set. Take a look at the color swatches from the 100 set and the new set. So as you can see, the 100 set has a lot of shades of bright, vibrant colors, and the new set is all very light and pastels. I don't have a lot of books that I can use alcohol markers with. You have to be really careful because they bleed through the paper really bad. I've seen a lot of colorists download pages and books from artists on Etsy. I looked through a bunch, but I kept coming back to this artist, Kelly O'Gorman. I loved her style, and I thought her book, The A to Z of Flora and Fauna, would be perfect for some quick, fun coloring. Sometimes I'm in the mood for longer projects, but lately I've been impatient and just want something I can finish in an hour or so. So I've picked the letter J for January. I'll start with the Juniper Berries. The Ohuhu brand of alcohol markers are a budget-friendly alternative to Copics, which can be purchased on Amazon. I don't use a lot of alcohol markers, so they work perfectly for my coloring needs. The markers in this 48 set all come with a dual tip. One is a brush tip and then the other is the chisel tip. My old set of 100 has the chisel tip with a bullet nib. And they also offer now a 120 set with the brush tip, which I am seriously considering getting because I really do like that brush tip. Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to start with the Juniper Berries, which will be blue. And so let me gather up those colors. I'll be using 66 from my old set, B050, and 64. And then for a darker shadow in that, I'll be using this BG9 from the old set. So my old set only has the numbers, as you can see, and the new set has the numbers and a name attached to it. The new set also comes with a colorless blender. I'll use that to start with, and I'll just color in these little circles, just do a few at a time. And then I'm going to take my lightest shade and just fill that in. Okay, then my medium shade, I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow, building that up into that lighter shade, leaving the top of it the lightest. And the darker shade at the very bottom. And I'm noticing with the paper and the markers, the ink kind of wants to bleed a little bit. Okay, so now I'm taking my lightest shade and I'm just working all those colors together. So it's still pretty wet, so it's going to blend better. And now I'm going to take just a little bit of this darker shadow color and just add a little line. But because it's wet and probably because of the type of paper, which is just a heavy cardstock, it's going to bleed a little bit more than I wanted, but that's okay. We're just playing around. And again, I just go back and forth using that lighter shade to help blend those colors together. All right, so I'm gonna fast forward through this a little bit. Same techniques on all of those berries. All right, I'll be working with this color. It's kind of a yellowish brown neutral called Sand. And then for the greenery, I'll be using G420, Green Shadow, and 51. So I'll start off by finding the little branches in here. I wasn't sure how I would like the brush tip as compared to like the fine bullet nib, but it really does get into those little tiny details, and I'm almost liking it better than the bullet nib. It just kind of feels good too to use these little brush strokes with it. All right, and then I'm using my lighter shade. This is Green Shadow, and I'm just gonna kind of cover over all the leaves. Nothing exciting going on here, so I'll speed it up just a little bit. All right, now I'm taking my darker green. This is number 51, and I'm just hitting the very inner part of that leaf, right next to kind of where it shoots out from the stem, just to give it some good contrast. And then I'm also using WG1, that's from my old set, just to add some more kind of shadows to those back leaves. All right, so to transition from the Juniper into the Jaguar, the background I'm going to use a dark kind of bluish gray, it's BG9, and I'm gonna just outline around all these little leaves, and then once I have all that outlined, then I can use the chisel side of the marker and really work in those bigger areas. All right, I'm gonna slide this up and I'll work on the Jaguar. These are the colors that I'll use. Again, it's a mix of my new set and old set. And I want to leave some areas white, but I'm gonna add a little bit of a shadow and just kind of, it helps remind me that I'm gonna leave some areas white. So I don't want to get carried away. So I'm just gonna use this to kind of help guide me and place the shadow for the white areas. All right, and then this is a yellow, number 37. And I'm just going to come up here and do some of the top areas and then the bottom, leaving the middle area white, and then I'll come back in with the lighter shade. So we'll go ahead and speed up the video so you can still see the process, but it won't take as long. Okay, now I'm going to come in here with a darker shade. This is Sand, and it's just going to create a little bit more of a contrast in here with my shadows, but it still blends in really nicely with the yellow. And after I do the darker, then I'll come back in with the lighter shades and blend that in better. I also added a little bit of green in the eyes and pink in the ears. Okay, moving on to the Jasmine Flowers. I'm going to use this number 37 for the center. And a touch of green G120, just in the center also, just right outside that little circle, so coming out onto the petals. It's always hard to do white flowers, I think, because you can't just leave them white. They have to have some kind of color, some kind of shadow and depth to them. So adding a little freshness of green right here in the center helps brighten it up. And then I'm going to use a shadow color for inside the petals. Okay, I'm going to take that same green and just cover all of the leaves. And then do a little bit darker green. This is G140. And just add that more towards the center and coming out on the veining of the leaves. Next, I'll be using the color 51. It's a nice dark kind of hunter green shade, and this will be the perfect contrast behind all these white flowers. All right, to add those shadows inside the white petals, I'm going to be using the color RG110. It is a light gray, but it also has like a hint of like purple in it. Okay, the jellyfish is our last J word. And I love all these little tendrils here on the jellyfish. And I'm going to be using, for the skinny ones, I'm going to be using some shades of purple. And sorry, my camera is not focusing in on these here. Let's see, I'll just have to do it individually, I guess. This is 84, 83, 73, and V220, or sorry, 230. So I'm going to start with my lightest shade, and I'm going to do the very ends up about a quarter of the way, maybe even going halfway on some of them. Okay, taking my next darkest purple and just again kind of going up just about a quarter at a time and connecting it with that very end, the lightest one, blending those two together. Okay, then taking another darker purple, starting up towards the top here, and bringing it down into that shade. And then the second darkest, I'm going to blend those two together. So I did the lightest one first, and then the next lightest one at the very ends. And then I started with the very darkest at the very top of the jellyfish, and then the next darker one, like a medium shade, to kind of connect those two together. All right, for these thicker tendrils coming down, they're going to go from yellow to like a brighter pinkish purple, like a fuchsia shade. So I'm going to start with the yellow. Again, just working about a quarter of the way up. And then my next shade, orange, I'll blend that in. And then taking the yellow, blending those two together. Okay, and then I'll take a pink that's gonna blend into the orange and then into the fuchsia color. Working in small little segments, so the ink is gonna stay wet, that way it's easier to blend. And then now for this darker shade of fuchsia at the very top, and then blending into the pink, taking that lighter pink again and blending together. So pretty. For the top of my jellyfish, I'll be using several different shades again, and since this is a bigger area, I'm going to use this blender, the colorless blender, and just do a couple of these little segments here just to get it nice and wet. And then I'm going to start with my pink shade here. This is my medium shade. I'm going to do inside these little segments here. And then taking the darker pink, which is 87, and I'm just going to kind of outline and give some definition to this little kind of rounded segment. Again, I'm only going to work on a couple segments at a time, that way it can stay a little bit more wet, so it'll be easier to blend the colors together. All right, and then I'll take a pink shade and just kind of rub it all over that darker one to help blend it away from the edge. And then I'm taking kind of this orange color, and that will be my lightest shade. So just kind of working it into the pink, but not taking away from the pink, and then just going back and forth between that pink and the orange to create that blend. All right, this darker purple, number 73, will just be used for contrast and to really kind of create that shadow in between these little segments. right, all done with the jellyfish, and now I'm going to do a blue background, but I want there to be a nice transition from the darkest gray up at the top, and then it kind of goes to that dark green. So I'm going to have to do some dark blue as it's coming out of the flowers and up into the jellyfish. But first I'm going to use the light blue. This is B030. I think this is like one of the lightest blues in the set, which is really pretty. And I'm just going to use that brush tip to move over all of these little tendrils here and kind of outline the whole picture, or this bottom half, in this light blue. Okay, working on the darkest part of the water. So I have that transition from the dark green to the darker blue water and then into the lighter water. I'm working with a few different shades. I have 69 is going to be the darkest shade. This is 76 and B050, which are kind of the two middle grounds. And I'm working in small segments and just working the darker color and then that medium color together, blending those as I go. And as I'm working my way up towards the jellyfish, then I grab my lightest shade, that's the B030, and then just kind of blend them together. All right, so the majority of the coloring is finished, and now I'm just going to add a little bit of white highlights and texture using a white Posca pen. And since the jellyfish was outlined in blue, I thought the rest of it could use some outline too. So I'm going to take that same light blue, B030, and just do a quick rough outline around all the leaves. And since this was J for January, I did some brush lettering up here at the top left corner. So thanks for watching, everyone, and here's to a creative January.